Start.
Yes, please go
Okay.
ahead, Pratik bhai.
So, first of all, why endoscopy discectomy for pain physicians? Uh, I would share my experience, personal experience. I did my pain management fellowship with Dr. Gautam Das sir in 2014. I started my pain management practice in Ahmedabad. I set up a small clinic and I visited some hospitals. Initially, patients are coming. Most of the patients, I think 60 to 70% are patients from low back pain, sciatica. Uh, the suffering period of the patients is variable. Some has a 3 to 6 months, some has a 5 years, 10 years, maybe there. And why 5 to 10 years? Because they don't want to undergo a big surgical procedure, spine surgery, fixations. I don't know, but people are very much scared in community to undergo spine surgery. So they will ask me, okay, we'll go for pain management procedure, transforaminal, epidural steroids, interlaminar steroids, and some radiofrequency. But what is the longevity of these procedures? So they will ask me, do you give a guarantee? The biggest word I face, very difficult to face is guarantee. So it's very difficult for me to answer. When I tell them that you will have a pain relief of 5 months, 6 months, maybe 1 year by these pain management procedures, then people don't want to undergo this type of procedures because if they is suffering from more than 5 years and 6 months pain relief is not enough. So they will find something which is curative and safe. So the answer is endoscopic lumbar discectomy, in which is a safe procedures we can do under local anesthesia. Complications rates are very low and very minimal invasive procedures. So let's begin with some talk about endoscopic procedures. So I would like to cover following things: prerequisite before you think of doing endoscopy, what infrastructure is required, how selection of patient in initial period of practice, how to do a perform a procedures, some complication and its management, post-operative protocol, and some case discussions. So endoscopy. Here you can see the three things. Uh, right one is open spine surgery when field of vision is more. The tissue is seen is very less. Second is microdiscectomy is a parallel vision, so very less tissue we can see. And this is endoscopic, where 1 centimeter incision is there, but we can see more tissue. So it's very convenient procedure. First, we start with prerequisite before think of doing endoscopic discectomy. So first is experience. Basically, we are anesthesiologists. We need to first train in pain management procedures. So we must undergo first pain management fellowship with any good institute. In India, there is lots of institutes. Das sir is, I think, conducting since last 10 years the courses, various courses, and I am also a student of Das sir. Uh, After completion of pain management fellowship, pain physician must undergo himself various pain management procedures done individually and confidently for good period, at least 6 months to 1 year. They have to perform. They perform procedure by himself, and they know how to handling the needle and how to introduce a needle and good anatomy, radiological anatomy of the spine. Why this require? Because first of all, the basic principle of medical practice is primum not nocere. First, do not harm. So, if non-experienced person started these procedures, they'll end up with complications. Then pain management, after pain management training, uh, we have to go for some endoscopic discectomy training. various sources like we can read from books, journals, article. We know the full anatomy of spine with ligaments, nerve root. These are some good books to read for spine endoscopy. They will discuss everything about lumbar and cervical endoscopy. So we are much concentrated on lumbar discectomy only. Various workshop and observership is also available. So observership at India and in international centers. In India, many endoscopic spine surgeon and pain physician offering observership. I did my training under Dr. Girish Datar sir at Miraj. Uh, Once we learn about endoscopic spine procedures from these teachers, then we have to do at least 10 to 20 procedure under observation of expert teacher or seniors who know the detail of endoscopic discectomy. Then anyone can pursue a individual endoscopic discectomy. Starting with anatomy. Spine anatomy, we know as a pain physician, most of the know that lumbar spine anatomy is there. But for endoscopic discectomy, the main anatomical region is Kembin's triangle, is a safe triangle. It is described by Dr. Parvez Kemby as a triangular annular zone. Anterior border is anterior border is exiting nerve root. Inferior border formed by superior vertebral end plate of inferior vertebra, posterior border by SAP of lower vertebral facets, and medially it's bordered by traversing nerve root. So this is basically a three-dimensional uh, uh, triangle from where we have to introduce our scope. The average dimension of this safe zone is height is around 12 to 13 millimeter, width is 18 to 19, and depth is 22 millimeters. So you can easily insert 7 or 8 mm cannula from this triangular into the disc without injuring the nerve root. So this is the MRI image and uh, uh, image of the Kembin's triangle. So we can plan our procedure from MRI himself. Why this dimension is required? This dimension is required because if anything degenerative changes reduces the disc height or hypertrophy the facets, then we have very much less area, safe triangle area is becoming less and less. So in initial part, when we are performing the procedures initially, beginners should think about not to jump when disc height is reduced, facet is hypertrophied, because size of Kembin triangle is reduced, then chances of injuring exiting nerve root is more. Second thing is which infrastructure we have to require to start with this. The basic thing is IITV is required for all pain management procedures. Many are doing under 6-inch IITV, but I would like to prefer for endoscopy at least 9-inch size of IITV is must. Size of OT is also required because lots of instrument required for endoscopic discectomy. So minimum size of OT would be the 12 foot by 16 foot. That is enough to perform these procedures. Now endoscopic instruments. So this whole cart is required from camera to light source, radio frequency machines, screens. Then first and foremost thing is endoscope. So many company offering endoscopes different from German companies. Some Chinese companies are also introducing, but not good quality. The specification of endoscopes are we are using 30-degree endoscope. Working channel diameter is 3.7, 3.1, 3.5, 4.1 is also available. But in Indian patients, 3.7, if we going for one endoscope, then 3.7 is a good medium diameter, which has an external diameter of 6.5 millimeter. And the length is also variable from company to company. Straws is giving 16 to 17 centimeter. Some German companies are giving 20 to 21 centimeter length, but it's okay. The length is not a question. Another thing is endoscopic needle and guide wire. The needle is 18 gauge needle and two length is available 20 and 25. Both is enough. Uh, this is dilator and sleeve. The diameter of sleeve is 7.5 millimeter and dilator is also 6.5 millimeter. Camera, any reputed company camera, either single chip or 3 chip is good for spine endoscopy. Basic camera is required. No hi-fi camera requirement for spine endoscopy. LED light source is enough. These are some hand instruments. In hand instrument, variety of instrument is available, but some basic instrument is required for beginners. Then over a period of time, with permissions of the having a good knowledge of anatomy and good amount spending capacity, we can pursue more and more instruments. So which basic instrument is required to start up with is a endoscopic needle, which I show you, guide wire, dilator and sleeve, mallet with a Teflon head. The long forceps we require is first is grasper, second is annular cutter, and third is hook. There are different companies in market which offering these instruments. German instruments is very good, best quality. But nowadays, since last 3 to 4 years, many Indian company are offering endoscopic instrument which is much cheaper than German and really giving good quality, moderate to good quality. Chinese instrument is also available, but I would not like to prefer because of poor quality. So this is a grasper. Grasper has a various diameter. Length of the most of the instrument length is 36 centimeter. Some are much 40 centimeter is also available. But main thing we have to see is diameter and jaw length in grasper. So 2.5 millimeter, 3 millimeter, and 3.5 millimeter are the commonly available grasping forceps. And jaw length is also variable from 3 millimeter to 7 millimeter is available. Smaller the diameter, wear and tear is more, and bigger the jaw, wear and tear is more. So we have to keep it moderate level. So I would like to prefer 3 to 3.2 millimeter diameter with 5 to 6 millimeter jaw length is very good instrument, and longevity of life is also much better with these instruments. Second instrument is the annular cutter. This is just like a scissor to cut the annulus. On right side figure, you see this MRI image. This yellow thing is an endoscope. Why we need to cut an annulus? Because once you do a decompressions below the annulus, this annulus become a firm wall. So we have to cut annulus from lateral border to the medially, just at least 5 to 7 millimeter to reach the midline. So it will weaken the annulus, and gradually over a period of time, this annulus become retracted and now root becomes free. Another thing is palpation hook is required. Why hook is required? Because many times tissues are in epidural space. See this endoscope yellow color. My endoscope is in the disc, but the protruded disc is in the epidural canal. So because of this facet, I can't go above. So how I do this? I insert this palpation hook, I manipulate it here and bring it under my vision because my vision is here only. I don't see this. But as I know in MRI, this fragment is here. So I would like to bring this fragment in my view and then I will pick up this fragment and remove it. These are some advanced endoscopic instruments: osteotome, curate, dissector, trifine, upcut grasper, Carrison forceps, reverse annular cutter, and reamers. So gradually over a period of time, we can purchase one by one. Second thing required is radio frequency cautery. Why radio frequency cautery? Because radio frequency cautery is a very high megahertz. German is giving 4 megahertz, and some Indians are also giving 3 to 4 megahertz cautery. German is costlier, Indian is quite cheaper. So we can purchase anything. The main thing of cautery require is to control the bleeding. And another thing is we can do some tissue retractions or tissue contractions. This is an advanced endoscopic burr, advanced instrument. We can purchase later on. Initially, it does not require. This is also a 36 centimeter length burr to drill the facets. Many times osteophytes are there. Carbon and diamond burr is also available. Some burr is also available with hood, so we can protect the exiting nerve root and we can drill the facets. But later on we can purchase, not initially required. Now come to the patient selections. So for first 5 to 10 case or 20 case, which type of patient we should select in our initial practice. So we will decide by history and examination, and other decide criteria is MRI findings. So I would like to prefer short duration of history, young to middle age patients, unilateral distributions of the pain, radiating pain along with tingling, and no severe comorbid conditions. So this is the ideal patient to choose initially, and some exclusion are old age patients, long duration of complaint, many have a motor power weakness, many have a coda equina problem, severe lumbar canal stenosis, and patient with psychosomatic component. We should avoid this type of patient in beginning. Old age, long duration patients have a very tough annulus, and some has a calcified annulus. By investigation in MRI, what we see is unilateral paracentral protrusion, contain herniation. L45 and L3 is most preferable for beginners because easy to get in. L5S1 can be done in initial period. The thing is, patient have a low iliac crest level because high iliac crest, so difficult to guide a needle and cannula. Exclusion are caudal and cranial migrations. So initially we will not try caudal migrator fragment to remove or like that. Scoliotic or kyphotic deformities we should avoid. Fibrocalcified annulus I mentioned above. Many times CT scan is also required to rule out that annulus is calcified, because if we decompressed below the annulus nucleus material, but if annulus is calcified, it will not retract back and patient does not get any results. High iliac crest patient difficult to manipulate because high iliac crest is in a way to guide our trajectory. Patient with infection and metastasis and listhesis and instability we should avoid. Not even beginning, even on later cases we should avoid this type of patients. So this is just an example which type of patient we choose. You see this Excel image. See, this is left paracentral, good protrusions. If we put our endoscope from here, we can remove this chunk and patient has a very good results. So this type of patient we will start with initial periods. Pre-procedure requirements are patient should understand the procedure, because this procedure under local anesthesia, patient's cooperation is required. We inform patients that some steps having a pain, so anesthesiologist should be keep standby, and he also consulted with these are the painful steps and you will take care of this. Pre-operative blood test, physician fitness, informed consent, antibiotic should be given. Another important thing is type of anesthesia. As an anesthesiologist, we know the type of anesthesia very well, but now we are on a seat of surgeons. So I would like to prefer local anesthesia with conscious sedation, no general anesthesia, no epidural, no spinal anesthesia. Why it is not? Because we have to work in between exiting and traversing nerve roots, and this nerve root can be injured with our instrumentations. So on a better side, we should do this procedure under local anesthesia. I have seen many senior endoscopic surgeons done under epidural anesthesia. In Germany, I have seen they are doing transforaminal lumbar endoscopic discectomy under general anesthesia, full general anesthesia. I'm surprised, but they are doing confidently. So we would like to put local anesthetic in skin, subcutaneous tissue, muscular tract till the lateral border of facet joint. Then I would manipulate to get needle into the disc. Intradiscal, I also give 1% plain lignocaine 1 ml to anesthetize the annulus, because annulus is the most painful organ which is in our way. Position of patient is prone. Keep some below the abdomen to correct the lumbar lordosis. Knee, ankle, and foot is also supported with soft pillow, because this procedure is around 1.5 to 2 hours. So patient should be comfortable in prone position also. Now starting with skin marking, how to proceed with these procedures. Many endoscopic spine surgeons prefer fixed distance from midline. For lower lumbar level, they would prefer 14 to 12 to 14 centimeters from lateral to midline. And for upper lumbar level, it's 9 to 11 centimeter lateral to midline. But as I undergo training, skin marking is must because every patient has a different build, different height, and there is a no fixed mark. So we would like to fix it with help of measurements. So how do these measurements? Let's see. For measurement, IITV position is required. Only PA and lateral view is required. No oblique view, no cranial or caudal inclinations. We require sterile marker and scale. So first is line A. There are 4 lines A, B, C and D. I would gradually show you. First is midline. This is a spinous process line and you can see the midline. Second is a disc line, line B. So on which level we have to perform the surgery, that is a B line. In this image you can see that L45 is, I mark L45. I would like to describe both L45 and L5S1 both markings. So this another one is L5S1 line. So you see the middle of the disc is L5S1. So we have 2 lines now, 45 and L5S1. The third line is iliac crest line. Upper level of iliac crest should be marked from middle of the disc. So you can see the center of the disc here, and from this center of the disc, my rod is above the iliac crest. And you see this dotted line, this is above the iliac crest line. And this is the same thing for L5S1 level. This is the iliac crest line. So this is basically our inclination line. In pain management, we are doing caudal inclination and we put our needle from here. This is the same thing. The fourth line is also an inclination line, and it also the measures distance from midline, how much lateral centimeter we have to keep. So it's a distance between anterior border of the disc to the back. So we mark this distance. This is the anterior border of the disc. So my rod is here and this is the back. And you can see this is anterior border of disc and this is my marker. So this much distance I have to keep lateral to midline. So from midline to lateral, I have to keep this much distance. So I mark here from midline to this. So this transverse line is considered as my point of entry. So I draw this line, and when this line intersect with dotted line, this is my point of entry for that disc. So this is my final markings. You can see first midline, second is disc line B1 for L45, B2 for L5S1. This inclination, the iliac crest line for L45, L5S1, and this is the point of entry line. So when it intersects, this is my, for L5S1, I have to introduce my needle from here, and for L45, I have to introduce this. So this is an introduction of the endoscopic needle. Now under incision size is 1 centimeter is more than enough to introduce 7.5 mm cannula and 6.5 mm diameter scope. So,
hello Pratik, can I interrupt you?
yes, sir.
Actually, the lines and this are, I know that there are a lot of questions regarding this. So I'll be just asking you to just quickly repeat the lines, very quickly repeat. I am sure that many of the participants, have this question. So
Sure, sir.
please just line quickly, recapitulate and then again go ahead with your.
Sure.
That will be very beneficial for the participants.
Sure. So there are 4 lines. I started with line A. Line A is a midline. So we keep our rod connecting all spinous process up from above to downwards. So you can see this, my rod, and you can see in IITV image, this is my rod, and this is line I draw. This is a midline. So we have to cap on one side only because this transforaminal endoscopy is a one-sided procedure only. Then second is disc line. So if I want to perform in L4-5 level, so I draw this line at the middle of the disc, from the center of the disc, above, downward, and lateral. I am at the center of the disc and I draw this.
Okay, Pratik,
over here.
again I'm interrupting. Please tell which is the caudal side and which is the cranial side of the patient, and which is right side, which is left side. Then it will be easier to understand.
So this is right-sided procedure. I am doing procedure on right side, and this is cranial, this is caudal.
And on the patient,
Above is a cranial and below is a caudal.
On the patient.
Yeah. Okay. This is cranial. Right side is a cranial. Left side is a caudal.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Yes. Yes.
This is head and side. Right side is a head and side, and left side is a foot and side. So second is a disc line. Actually, these two lines may be confusing, so I would avoid second line. We will keep the L4-5 only. So this is third line. This is we have to draw above the iliac crest, because this line I draw is below the iliac crest level, but I have to perform my procedure above the iliac crest. So this is the, you can see this is iliac crest and my rod is above the iliac crest. So I have to put another line above it, above the L4-5. So this is the disc line and this is iliac crest line. In between, iliac crest is situated here. So I have to introduce my needle just above the iliac crest. Now we have to measure the distance, how much lateral we have to keep our needle from midline. So this distance is measured in lateral view. All three markings are done in PA view. Now this fourth marking, we will do it under lateral view. In lateral view, I have to keep rod at disc level till anterior border of the disc, not posterior, till anterior border of the disc. So this is the anterior border of the disc and my rod is at L5S1. So I kept my rod like this, which is seen in right side X-ray. So I mark a distance from here. See, this is my marking. I mark with pen. So the distance is, this is anterior border of the disc and this is parallel to back skin. My pen is just parallel to skin. So this is a centimeter length. Now I reflect this length from midline. So I keep this marking on my rod. Sorry. So this is the length. If it is 12 centimeter, I mark it at a 12. If it is 13, I mark it here. So this is the distance lateral to the midline. So these are the centimeter lateral I have to keep my needle from midline. Now I am not introducing my needle from here. I have to introduce my needle from above. So I extend this line till above, parallel to midline. So if you see this is a 12 centimeter, then I draw a 12 centimeter lateral line from caudal to cranial. When it intersect with above crest line, this is my insertion point of needle. Is it okay, sir?
Yes, yes.
So this is final marking, midline first, disc line. This is iliac crest line. This is inclination line. So we have to incline, and this is the point of entry where I have to, and this is a distance also. So I reflect
So
this distance
that
from
means
here to here.
that means in the lateral view, the distance from the midline is equal to the distance from the anterior border of the disc to the skin. So that is the distance
Yes, sir.
from midline to the lateral. Is it?
Yes, sir. Yes, yes,
Okay,
yes.
okay.
Perfectly, sir. So this is why how we introduce a long spinal needle, 18 gauge needle. Incision we kept initially I kept 2 to 3 millimeter incision, but when I introduce dilator, I keep incision 1 centimeter. So what is our target? Our target is in PA view and in lateral view. We have to see only two views. So we have to introduce our needle obliquely till we reach at this level. In PA view, we have to keep our needle at mid pedicular level. So this is the pedicle of the disc, and I kept my needle exactly at mid pedicular level. Same time in lateral view, my needle is reached at PLL. This is the posterior longitudinal ligament level. So this is the ideal level to introduce the disc. My needle, when my needle inserted on in the disc is a ideal level, mid pellicular line in PA view and PLL line in lateral view. If I in lateral view my needle is seen here, same level, but in PA view if my needle is in here, so I am much superficial and I may encounter in epidural space because my needle is much superficial. And vice versa, if in AP view my needle is seen here outside the pedicle, and in PA view my needle is seen here, so I am quite outside, I am not I am quite deep. So I am not superficial, I am not deep. So this is the ideal level, mid pedicular and PLL level is, and we can adjust without introduce inside the disc because annulus is painful. Once I pierce the annulus, patient is shouting. So before piercing annulus, I have to make sure that my needle position is fine. If it is not fine, I can adjust this without much pain. If it is more medial, then I have to be little deep. If it is more lateral, I have to be a superficial. Now I introduce needle inside the disc. Now inside the disc level, my needle position is in PA view. It's exact in the center of the disc, on right, left, or up, down. In lateral view, my needle should be in a posterior 1/3 part of the disc because we have to do a decompression from posterior 1/3 only. Middle 1/3, anterior 1/3, we don't require to decompress. So this is the working. Our working cannula and diameter remain in this region only. In PA view, center of the disc. In lateral view, posterior 1/3 of the disc. So after introducing needle, I do a discography. Here you can see some images of discography which shows the degenerative disc diseases. Some of my dye reach up to the both side peripheral level. So it shows quite a degenerative disc. In here, my dye is in center part only. So this disc maybe some strength is there in disc. Another discography and lateral view. Why discography is required? Because in discography we can see annular tear is there or not. If annular tear is there, in lateral image we can see that our dye is coming out in an epidural space. If it is coming out in an epidural space, then while introducing local anesthetic agent, our agent can spread to the epidural space and can anesthetize the nerve root. So we have to take care not to anesthetize nerve root while during the procedures. Now introducing dilator. Two type of dilator available. Serial dilator is available, and this is a single dilator system. So 6.5 millimeter diameter dilator. We just introduce over the guide wire. This is the lateral image where I insert the first image shows the left side image shows my dilator reaches up to the foramen. In second image, I just introduce my dilator inside the disc. So this is a final image of dilator placement. In PA view, you can see middle of the disc. Some even we can cross and go to the opposite side also. That is not harmful. And in lateral view, it's in posterior 1/3 part of the disc. So whatever we are removing the tissue mainly from posterior 1/3 of the disc, which is the protruded part. Then I introduce cannula. So cannula introduced over the dilator. It is smoothly gone, and final position of cannula is middle of the disc in lateral view, posterior 1/3 of the disc. Now connect the cameras and start decompressing. This is grasping forceps inside the disc and start removing some fragments. Here I can show you very short video. It shows this is the endoscopic view. My grasper is picking up the fragments from the disc, and I would remove fragment. So this is the cannula, endoscope, and removal of the fragments from the disc. The big fragments, so I slowly remove it, and you can see the big chunk of fragment is compressing nerve root, so giving good result to patients. This is some endoscopic view of annulus. These are some fragments removed. This is biggest fragment I have removed from in my lifetime. I have done 120, 130 procedures, but this is a 7 centimeter long fragment I remove, and full fragment I remove without any breakage. So how to confirm the decompressions? When to complete the procedures? So these are some criteria we have to follow to confirm the decompression of nerve root is there. So free fluttering of annulus flap and epidural fat. Some epidural oozings are coming from the epidural space. Visual confirmations of removal of entire herniations. Relief of pain as confirmed by patients. With patient having a severe pain and radiating pain, when we remove the fragment which compressing nerve root, immediately patient tell you that my pain is gone.
No, you just
Pratik bhai, I have muted everyone. You unmute yourself. Pratik bhai, you unmute yourself.
Okay, audible?
Yes, yes, now audible.
Okay, so should I start again? You are also mute.
we have heard.
You can start from this slide.
Okay. So confirmation of decompression, patient himself is giving indications that the nerve root is free and his radiating pain is gone. Many times we can see visualization of decompressed traversing or exiting nerve root and free pulsation of neurological tissues. So here is also a very small video. You can see the nerve root is free. This is the nerve root, traversing nerve root. You can see it is freely fluttering. So this is the end of procedures. Now,
Can you explain the different structures in that video? like epidural fat and how to differentiate between the annulus and the nerve root?
Actually, annulus is removed, and this is only nerve root you can see. But
Because
I
I
can,
could see the epidural fat at around 10 o'clock position, so people will
yeah,
have
yeah,
idea.
yeah. This is a nerve root. The right and left side is the end plate, and this is epidural fat hanging around at 10 o'clock. And above is the epidural space. This is the epidural space. So,
Okay.
okay. Some complications and its management. Common complication is bleeding. We can control with bipolar radiofrequency cautery. Uh, Many times bleeding is significant and we can't control. We can't see because our vision is blurred with gush of bloods. In that case, we can compress. So, how to compress in endoscope? Just removing endoscope and putting the dilator inside. Wait for 7 to 10 minutes. Clotting time of patients. Bleeding will stop by himself. Second is nerve root injury, very common during instrumentation. If we given local anesthesia and if it is spread around the nerve root, it's difficult for us to know. And I would like to prefer under local anesthesia. So nerve root is not anesthetized at all. If it is happen and nerve root injury is there, we should stop procedure there and we should postpone the procedures and to avoid more nerve root injuries. How to prevent it? Better to do procedure under local anesthesia, avoid general anesthesia, and regularly checking motor power of lower limb intraoperatively. For example, we can check dorsiflexion of toe for L5 nerve root injury, ventriflections by the S1 nerve root injury, and just like that. Another is infections can be occur not in our hand after using everything, all precautions. Infection may be occur. Discitis, early and late presentation is also there. Antibiotic for 6 weeks, many patients will cure. Some patients require endoscopic debridement and 6 week antibiotic. Some patients also require a spine surgery with fixation. Another is dural tear. If small dural tear, it will be no any tensions, conservative treatment, patient giving good bed rest for 1 month. Small tear will heal. But major tear, surgical intervention required because if dura is tear, then nerve roots become exposed, and that is not a good thing. So we have to tell surgeons to open the spine and repair the tear. Some other complications not common, but perforation of peritoneal sac and injury, missed fragment, instrument breakage. I have heard about it. Some have a instrument breakage inside and required to go for surgery. Hematoma formations while in the track, post-operative dysesthesia, and recurrent herniations. So, what post-operative protocol we have to follow? We have to be given. I would like to prefer stick bed rest for 3 to 4 weeks. Lumbar strengthening exercise should be continued. After patient having a good pain relief after 1 month, I would recommend to at least 6 months to 1 year regularly doing daily exercise for lumbar strengthening. Avoid heavy workload for at least 6 months to 1 year. Bending forward is also avoided. Here I can show you some 2 to 3 cases having a pre-op and post-op MRI images. These are young male patients.
Just a minute, Pratik bhai. I think before that, let us have some question answer session. If audience is having any kind of question about the basics, about the instrumentation, needle placement and all. So there was one question that if annular tear is there, you are suspecting calcification. So what are the indications to go for CT scan? Importance of annular calcifications, how it would be deciding your plan about the endoscopy.
If posterior annulus is fully calcified and if it is protruded, and causing mechanical nerve root compression of either exiting nerve root or traversing nerve root, I would avoid to go for endoscopic discectomy, because in endoscopy we are removing whatever the material protruded is nucleus material, not annulus. If annulus is calcified, it's very difficult to give results because that annulus is not coming down. So if it is calcified, we should avoid the endoscopic discectomy, because these patients require posterior decompression, laminectomy. I have one experienced same patients. In initial of my practice, I could not find that his annulus is calcified. So I did one discectomy. Patient doesn't have any results. So I go for MRI again. Disc is there, same level. So I did repeated. Then I referred surgeon and he advised me to go for a CT scan. I have seen that patient having a completely calcified annulus. So when he undergo open spine surgery, that neurosurgeon told me that I would not like to touch this calcified annulus. I just do a posterior decompression and traversing nerve root and dura becomes free. But no anterior decompression, because this can injure his nerve root and dura, because it requires highly instrumentation with whatever they are using instruments, but they have to break that annulus, and breaking of annulus is very difficult because both side traversing nerve root is there and in center dura is there, so it's very difficult for open spine surgery also.
Okay. So another question is, what kind of antibiotic protocol you are following? Pre-surgery and post-surgery.
Pre-surgery, usually I give cefuroxime or cefoperazone sulbactam, any one of these, along with amikacin. I would like to give same day of surgery twice a day, and another the next day also one dose. So I regularly give 3 doses of antibiotic
Intravenously.
intravenously.
Okay.
And post-operatively 5 days cefuroxime and clavulanic acid combination is enough to control, because these procedures have a bacteria MRSA or Staph aureus is commonly we can see this type of bacteria infiltrating our tracts, because we have to this bacteria coming from the skin only.
Okay. So another question is, are you using any kind of steroid inside the disc when you do discography or when you are done with the discectomy?
No. I would like to give transpuraminal or interlaminar steroids after the completion of procedure. During discography, not at all, no steroids. And even after completion of procedures, I would avoid intradiscal steroids, because steroid is controlling the inflammations. And I would not like to control the inflammation and fibrosis. Let the disc having a fibrosis, because fibrosis is much and more fibrosis, that disc become much and more strengthened. So no
And
need to give
not only that, intradiscal steroid is contraindicated. Earlier, very earlier, not earlier, in 90s, the intradiscal steroid was one of the practice. Even in our earlier days, I have seen intradiscal steroid in internal disc disruption and some other cases was practiced. But nowadays, all the recent literature is telling intradiscal steroid is contraindicated. So we must not be thinking of giving the steroid inside the disc. But what Dr. Pratik told, that it is a common practice, even in my cases of endoscopic discectomy, I prefer to give little bit of steroid around the nerve root after completion of the procedures, because there is inflammation around the nerve root. So if we are giving little bit of steroid, apart from the mechanical decompression, we can take care of the inflammatory part as well. But one question, Dr. Pratik, here you have mentioned about 3 to 4 weeks bed rest.
Yes.
In my practice, I don't do that, and many endoscopic surgeons also don't do that. Like what I do, I asked the patient, make the patient mobile immediately after 1 or 2 days after surgery. I told them that, okay, when patients ask when to join their job, I tell, 7 days rest, not even strict bed rest, 7 days rest. And after 7 days, they can join. One very important thing is that there are two components. One component is the nerve root and second component is the annulus. So annulus normally takes longer time to heal. It takes around 4 weeks time to heal. So the patient will be having some back pain for around 4 weeks. That is expected. So we should be telling the patient that his leg pain will be recovered very soon, but back pain will not be recovered soon because that is because of the annular injury. And in fact, we are cutting the annulus. So for healing of the annulus, it will be taking around 4 weeks time, maybe a little bit more sometimes in some cases. But we are not advising strict bed rest in these patients. So are you asking them for the full bed rest for these 4 weeks, 3 to 4 weeks?
Actually, sir, the problem is annulus. We create a annular. We cut the annulus regularly. I cut at least 4-5 millimeter of annulus. At least I cross the facets till I cut. I cut the annulus and cross the facet because most of the patients, you can see the MRI that the annulus is touching the facets. So we have to create some gap between this to give a good results. So
That's true, but because we are removing the nuclear material, so even if there is a gap and even if it is taking time for the annulus to heal, I don't feel that, okay, 4 weeks bed rest is, or 3 to 4 weeks bed rest is mandatory. And I have seen many of the other, like Dr. Gore, I'll be telling, his protocol is, that 1 week bed rest and 3 to 4 weeks of not allowing the heavy things to lift, bending forward, this kind of protocols. So, so this is many of the neurosurgeons. But again, anyway, so person to person, based on their experience and based on their, so they are varying. But in our center, whatever we do, nowadays we are doing very less. But still, whatever we have done and we have followed, we normally doing around after 1 week we are allowed them to join. Only thing is they are not allowed to lift the heavy objects so that the disc pressure is increasing.
Okay, another question from the audience is what is the angle of needle insertion? So you have very well demonstrated the lines. One question was what is the inclination line or D line? So basically inclination line or D line, it is coming from this spine process. If you are taking inclination, so you are taking the road and you are making a line along the skin, that is called D line. So that was the question. And one question is what is the angle of needle insertion from the skin to the disc?
Angle is variable, but mostly it is a 30 to 40 degree angle. So we can reach, at least we have to target our needle towards the foramen.
Yes, actually, Pratik, you're right, but what is important that when already Dr. Pratik already told that if you're looking about the depth and distance from the midline, the more we are going up, means upper lumbar or middle lumbar, so distance from the midline is less, and your angle is little bit more, angle is more, around maybe a little bit more than 30 degree. And if we are going down like L5-S1 disc, the angle is around 30 degree. So it is somewhere around 30 degree or 30 to 40 degree, what Dr. Pratik told. But for the L5-S1 it is less. For the L4-5, L3-4 it is little bit more. From the horizontal line to the needle angulations, it is little bit higher on the upper disc and lower in the lower disc. And same for the distance from the midline. Same from the distance to the midline, upper disc it is less, and if you are going down, it comes a little longer from the midline.
Even in upper level, lumbar level, we keep 1 to 2 centimeter inside our marking lines. If marking is around 11 centimeter, I would like to prefer to go 1 centimeter more medial, not lateral.
And another, you're right. Another thing is in the upper lumbar. Another very important thing is we have to remember the kidneys also.
Kidneys also, yes, sir.
Okay. So what kind of sedation you are using when you are doing endoscopic discectomy under local anesthesia? So what kind of medicine usually you give for the conscious sedation?
Fentanyl and if required midazolam. These two medicines I used. I avoid propofol or any general anesthetic agent. This is enough, and more dose is required when I pierce the annulus. If I anesthetize annulus very well, then dose is required is very low. But annulus is the most painful part. So during annulus puncture, when I introduce my dilator inside the annulus, patient is shouting. So at that time, I give this fentanyl midazolam more doses also we can give.
But Dr. Pratik, I'll be telling you these things. The Ramai communicants block. I don't know whether you have tried or not. So we had a publication in 97 that in all our cases nowadays, after that, since 96, 16 and onwards. So the annulus, if you're looking about the nerve supply of the annulus is supplied by the fibers from the sympathetic fibers from the Ramai communicants. So if we are doing the Ramai communicants block at the same level, that means if it is L4-5 disc, we do the Ramai communicants block at the level of the L4, and that gives fantastic anesthesia. So what Dr. Pratik told earlier when we started, that time we always face this difficulty. As soon as we are touching the annulus, particularly with the dilator, patient shouts, patient starts moving, and that is the time when most of the people used to give your the little bit of fentanyl, little bit of midazolam, sometimes even little bit of propofol, because that is the most painful part. Once you are inside, pain is less, but just crossing the annulus, that time is most painful part. But if we are doing the Ramai communicants block, then this is not going to anesthetize the nerve root. This is not going to do any harm to any other structures. It is not going to anesthetize the nerve root, exiting, traversing, nothing. But only the sympathetic fibers will be blocked, and you can very nicely go to the annulus, and it is not going to produce any pain. I'll be asking Dr. Pratik, please try at least 1 or 2 cases of Ramai communicants block before your procedure, and I'm telling you, your things will be, you'll be very much amazed with that. Many practice this one, and we had these first publications on this Ramai communicants block before endoscopic discectomy. It gives fantastic result.
Sure, sir, I will try. Actually, Palak already told me.
Definitely yes, definitely what you told is very important, that general anesthesia must be avoided. At least beginners should never think of the, many experts can do that, but even the juniors, most important safety for us is if you're touching the nerve root, patient will not allow us to injure the nerve root if we are not doing any, anesthetic, general anesthesia or lot of local anesthesia around the foramen. That is contraindicated. We must not be giving local anesthetic around the foramen. Then that might be blocking the exiting and traversing nerve block, root block, and that patient might not be able to understand even if we are injuring the nerve root. So that is one of the very important safety aspect, that we must be keeping our exiting and traversing nerve root intact, not anesthetized.
I think, sir, we should proceed with the case discussion.
Right. And Pratik, thank you for a fantastic, excellent presentation. Very minute details, one by one, particularly for the juniors. You have made the things very clear, that what are the things needed, how they should go, all your drawing and all those things. Your presentation was fantastic. Please go ahead with your case discussion, please.
Thank you, sir. 2 to 3 cases I can mention here. First case, this is young male patient, 35-year-old, suffering from low back pain and left lower limb radicular pain, tingling and numbness in left lower limb, not
You
able
can
to
share
stand.
your screen.
Screen is not there?
Yes, screen is there. I can see.
Okay.
Screen is already there.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So this patient having a neurological claudications of less than 100 meter, not able to stand for more than 10 minutes. He is working in Oman and his job is standing for 8 to 10 hours a day. So it's very difficult for him to pursue a job. So he presented with me. He had an extruded L4-5 disc and compression of L5 nerve root. endoscopic discectomy done in 2016 from left-sided transforaminal approach. And this is the disc you can see. This is the disc and this is the protruded part is completely inside the epidural canal. Some caudal migration also. Very few, not we can't tell it is migration, but it is a disc. And this is a sagittal image. Very beautifully seen fragment. I call it beautiful because it is very easy to remove this type of big fragment. And sorry, left side is a patient's image pre-op and right side is a post-op image. And after discectomy, you can see that nerve root and epidural canal is free from fragment, also in sagittal image. Another case is also L5S1 disc protrusion, young female, 22 years old, suffering from back pain, left radicular pain. MRI shows L5S1 disc protrusions, left-sided S1 nerve root complex compressions. Endoscopy done in 2018. Pre-op, post-op. This is protrusion, and this is after 6 months. You can see nothing is seen, no compression. Yes. So this is a protruder part, and this is a totally decompressed. Another patient is 55 years, middle-aged patients, low back pain, radiating pain, disc protrusion at L5S1 level done in 2018. Even in this patient in 2018, I did some platelet plug insertions. Dr. Gore sir have published a paper on this to platelet plug insertion after completion of endoscopy. As we have discussed, we introduce steroid introduce or not inside the disc. They did some study to introduce platelet plug to generate a fibrosis, to augment the fibrosis and strengthening the disc. So I also did a 4 to 5 cases, but initially get a good results. Even in these patients, I got a very good results. But gradually, patients having a more and more pain, and I have to give epidural steroid after 1 month. So I completely stopped this nowadays. So this is L5S1 disc, totally compressing the epidural sac, and you can see this flat line of disc and decompressed disc. So after introduction of platelet plug, I can tell that this disc having a fibrosis and it will come back to the normal level. This is the same patient, sagittal image. My take-home message is endoscopic discectomy can be learned by proper training under good and experienced teacher. First 10 to 20 cases should be done under guidance of seniors. Quality of instrument must require for safety and efficacy of procedures for beginners. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Pratik Bhai, for a wonderful elaboration of the entire topic about what beginners should think of doing before starting